Hey y'all, welcome to or welcome back to Dave's Tech Way, whichever way the situation may be. Glad you stumbled upon my channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing the upgrades to the Cooler Master Haf XB EVO case. It's the upgrade to my personal rig. I'm going up from the 8370 with the FX990 motherboard up into the Ryzen 5 2400G with the GIGABYTE B450M DS3H motherboard. Stay tuned, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this system rebuilt and get my upgrade put in. I'll be right back. Alright y'all, like I said in the intro today, we're going to be updating, or we're going to be rebuilding in the Cooler Master EVO case here. Like y'all know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I went out and bought the GIGABYTE motherboard again. I went out and bought the Ryzen 5 again. I went out and bought the T4 cooler again. And all that was for them overclocking videos. By the time the request came in for the overclocking videos, that system was already sold and gone. So I had to rebuy the parts that I used in that system before I could do the overclocking videos, which I'll have another one coming up on that. But and that would be a decent upgrade compared to the 8370 build that I've been running for the last 3 years or so. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them parts into my case. I ripped it apart. I done sold the motherboard, CPU, RAM, and graphics card that I was running. I done sold it, but I took the power supply and the hard drives and everything out of it. That way it could be almost like a new build for anybody that hasn't seen any of my other videos. But to go over what we're gonna be putting into it, of course we got the Cooler Master T4 here for the air cooler. We have the Ryzen 5 2400G. We're going to be putting into it. There's the I/O shield for the motherboard. And yeah, if you guys are wondering, this here is the way the system's been setting since I bought it for some of the videos I've been doing, for the overclocking videos. It's been sitting on the motherboard box. We have the GIGABYTE B450M DS3H motherboard here that we're going to be putting in the system. Like I said, I got the I/O shield for it here. And to stick with the original build that guys was asking about the overclocking on, I went ahead and reordered the exact RAM. It's 8 gigs, two 4 gig sticks of Patriot Vapor RAM running at 3000 megahertz speeds. Which for my personal rig, I'm going to be upgrading that too, which I like 16 gigs because of my video editing. The power supply is the one I've been running for the last few years. It's the Corsair RM650. Still running great after 3 years, so there's no sense in upgrading it or anything else. That's going to be more than enough power for this system. With a hard drive, we have a 240 gig Kingston SSD for the boot drive. We have a 1 terabyte by Seagate. That's a few years old. I'm surprised it hasn't went out yet. And then we got the 3 terabyte hard drive that I got another video on, showing the installment of it, putting it into this case. So that's going to be the storage. And then I also went on eBay and I got this XFX RX 588 gig. I don't do much gaming anymore, guys. I don't make time for it. I got too much going on in my life. But this will help with the video editing and whatnot. I can utilize the GPU for the video editing. So I went ahead and picked it up. I mean, you can pick these things up for $100 or so now on eBay, a little over $100. And of course, we have the case, which if you've seen my other video, it's been getting a good bit of views on it. Is the Cooler Master EVO Haf, H-A-F-F-A-F. I'm still going to use the same case for right now. I got another build video because I'm going to be upgrading. But this is the case that we're going to be putting this all in. But if you see my other video, you know how I enjoy this case. So let me get reset up and I'll be right back. I'm going to start out with the prepping of the motherboard. We're going to be doing the inserting of the CPU for you that haven't seen any of my other videos yet. On the AM4 platform for Ryzen, you got this little clip right here. You pull it to the side and lift it up. It unlocks the socket for you can get the processor put into. If you look at the processor here, you see a little gold triangle right here on the corner. There's a little triangle right here indented into the motherboard, into the socket. You line them up, drop it down in. Just like so. Give it a little wiggle, make sure it's in there good. And you lower the retention arm, and you lock it back down. There you go, and your CPU's installed. There you go, now we're gonna do the RAM. The motherboard recommends, you got 4 slots for RAM. I don't know if you can tell in the video or not, but there's 2 black ones and 2 gray slots. You wanna install them in dual channel, which your gray slots is 1 channel, your black ones is another channel. You want to open up the retention arms. On this motherboard you have 2 clips, 1 on each side. Some of them you only have 1. Looking at your RAM modular here, you got a notch right here. You line up the notches like they're supposed to be lined up. Like that, 1 corner on each side, clip them down in. Your second one, you do it the same way. Line up your notches. Set it down in there. And you hear them click on both sides. Now we're going to do the Cooler Master T4 air cooler, which since I've already used it, you're going to have to put some thermal paste on it here. The thermal paste we're using, I got some off of Amazon. It's MX4 thermal paste. It's made by Arctic, so it should be pretty good stuff, which thermal paste is thermal paste. There ain't a whole lot of difference in the brands. You take it and put a little bit right there in the middle, like so. And yes, guys, I know, I've heard it so many times. Some people just leave it like that. I don't do that. If you see my other videos, I spread mine out. There's a reason why I spread it out. You can do that and just leave it sit there and let the heat sink spread it for you. But me, I spread mine out. I want to make sure that CPU gets good and covered. I want to make sure it's all covered. That's why I spread mine. And I'm just going to spread it out. Yeah, the cat's talking too. She must like to be on video. Spread it out. This nice thin cover. You just don't want to be able to read what the top of the CPU says. And this has already got the brackets on it for the T4. So, you know, it's the old AM3 setup for that. To install the original heatsink, you'd have to take these 2 brackets off. The heatsink that comes with the Ryzen 5, you'd have to take these off and the screws down. The T4 actually uses them brackets, which there's some of the higher end CPU coolers that come with the Ryzen 7s use them, and some of the aftermarkets like this one does. The brackets is already on there. So you want to take the bracket here, this little retention lever they got, put it down through here, put it down through here. Now this little prong right here, little prong right here on top, that there has to go down in that slot for it to set correctly onto the CPU. All right, guys, you put the clip down on the one side over here without the retention bracket. Make sure it's lined up on your CPU right. Come over to this side. You gotta push down on that bracket to get it to click in. Just like so. Then you just take and raise that retention lever and flip it. And there you go. It's on there pretty good, pretty solid. It's lined up right on the CPU. And it's installed. The fan I've used this. I've already put a table zip tie on the fan. Just to keep it looking better, we're going to run it between the heat sink and the RAM, just to slide it back in there. Get that cable back there next to that fan header. Gonna line the fan up where it needs to be. And it just clips them back there to where them clips slide into them little brackets on both sides. And there's the ones on the other side. That way you know it's all the way seated. And then you turn it around here. On the motherboard you have this header right here. It says CPU fan. It's 4-pin. Take your CPU fan, which is 4 pins. You got 2 little notches on it. You got a notch on the connector there on the motherboard. Line them up, you slide down on. And then there's your CPU fan completely installed. And with that being said, the motherboard is prepped and ready to go into the case. Well, this third part of the video, I'm going to have to do a voiceover. I'm installing the PSU, or the power supply, in this. I got to do a voiceover because, dummy me, I forgot to turn on the microphone when I reset up the camera for this shot. So I'm going to play this video that got me installing the power supply. And I'm going to just kind of voice over and explain to you what you're seeing on the screen. I know it ain't the best, but you know, I ain't going to turn my computer back apart to show you this. So here's the video. First thing is, this thing's got a bracket on the back. You got 4 screws, 1 in each corner of the bracket. You got to remove the bracket. Here on the video, I'm just showing you how you take the 4 screws out. I don't know why, but a lot of the cases nowadays is coming with these brackets. To me, it's just an extra step. I don't know. They used to just slide in and screw in, but a lot of case manufacturers now is doing these brackets either one way or the other. Maybe they think it's more convenient. Maybe, I don't know what they're thinking, but you know, it is what it is. And there I am taking the last screw out of the bracket. Right here I'm describing the fan. I like to put my fans down when possible. In this case, there is an air filter on the bottom, so it sucks in clean air, cooler air than what it can out of the system. And it's also within its own, it's got its own air circulation. You know, what comes into the power supply comes out of the power supply. It don't go into the case. So it's better to have the fresh air. It helps keep the temperature of the power supply down. Here I am, I'm just kind of feeding the cables in to get it set up. Here I'm explaining how it is a modular power supply, but I've already got the wires connected. I didn't disconnect the cables. That's pretty simple and straightforward. They only plug into certain slots, and they'll only plug into the slots that they're made for. Just slide it back in there, getting it ready. Now you can leave this completely out of the case when you insert this bracket. Here's a bracket going back onto the back of the power supply. You have 4 screws, 1 in each corner. Make sure you put the screws in the holes that are threaded, and you ain't hitting an exhaust hole, because it won't hold like it should if you don't get it in the right holes. Like everything else you've seen in my videos, I'm just getting the screws started just by a couple threads. You know, just enough to hold it in spot. I want to be able to move it around if necessary to get the rest of the holes lined up on it. I got 2 of them put in. Now I'm getting ready to put the other 2 in. Hit the right hole, David. There we go. That's the right hole. And now, since I got them all started, I'll go ahead and come back and tighten them all down. These don't have to be extremely tight, guys. You know, I say wrist tight. You know, you ain't trying to seal it against water or air. You just want it to be able to hold the power supply in. If you don't move your power supply a whole lot, you know, you don't even have to tighten them down that much. I'd recommend it, but it ain't necessary. Now, since I got the bracket on, I'm going to slide it back in where it goes. And now I'm going to put the 4 thumb screws back into the bracket that holds it to the back of the case. And just like I did the other 4 screws on the power supply itself, I'm only going to get them started finger tight, and then I'll go back around and retighten them down. I'm lifting it up so I can see what I'm doing and give you guys a better view of what's going on here. Don't need a screwdriver at this point because, like I said, you know, they are thumb screws and I'm just getting them started. So once I get them all put in, then I'll come back with a screwdriver and get them tightened down. And there's the 4th thumb screw holding the bracket into the case. Now I'm just going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to tighten them down. And like I said, these are just like the other screws on the power supply, guys. You know, about this tight. They don't have to be extremely tight, but you don't want them shearing off. You don't want to strip them out. You know, just enough to hold the power supply in the spot. And that is the installation of the power supply. Alright guys, since we got the power supply in, we're going to go ahead and do the hard drives, which these things are pretty easy in this case. These here's the sleds that come with the case. You got these 2 little prongs sticking up on each one. You just put them into the holes where normally the screws would go. Just like so. On both sides, 1 rail on each side. Alright, here's your drive cage sleds. There's only 2 in this case, keep that in mind. And once you got the sleds on them, you just slide them down in. Just like so. And we're going to repeat the same process with the 3 terabyte hard drive. Make sure when you do this that the prongs, see how it's a little bit longer on this side? You want to make sure them prongs is facing towards the SATA connectors for your hard drives. That way they stick up like here. That way you can push them in to pull the sleds back out when need be. You know, you need to replace your drives or you want to upgrade them or whatever. Then you slide it right back down into there, just like so, and it clicks. If you've seen my other video, it's only got 2 drive sleds. I got 3 drives. So I got my solid state drive I need to put in yet, which if you've seen my other video, I need to hook up the cables to it before I put it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook up my SATA data cable, which is give you a good view of this anyways. You got this little clip on the one side of it, and it's shaped like an L on the inside. It goes on the smallest connector on the back of the solid state drive or the hard drive. You line up the L's to where they're facing the same way, and you just push them in until it clicks. You'll hear a little click, and it's in there. It ain't going no place. As far as your SATA power goes, comes off your power supply. It's got the same L on it, but there's really no connectors on it to click. But it does have the L, so it'll only go in one way. And just like your SATA data on the back of your hard drive or your solid state drive, it goes the same way. Just line up your L, get it lined up right, and you push it down on, just like so. Like I said, it kind of clicks and it kind of hooks in there, but it ain't real good. There's no metal clips on it to hold it. And the way I keep my solid state drive in this case, because I'm out of drive sleds, which I've got another video with just this happening. I'll put it right back here on these back fan holes, because I don't have fans back here. And this is why I got to hook the cables up before I put them in there. I'm going to use these fan mounts for it, because I don't have fans back here. You can tell I can only get 2 screws in here to get the secure down, which is fine because it is a solid state drive. With a solid state drive, you can put 2-side tape on them and put them anywhere. You can just leave them hanging in your system if you want. Just take and get the screws started. Just like everything else I do, I get both of them started before I tighten them down here. And you can tell the second screw that I put in this thing is actually in a vent hole. But it holds it. I mean, it's solid state. There's no moving parts in it, so it ain't gonna hurt nothing. I could easily just hook it up and just lay it in the bottom of the caddy or the bottom of the case and it'd be just fine because I don't move my computer a whole lot unless I'm doing something like this with it. But there's your solid state drive installed. While I got you here, the power cable and the power cables and the data cables for your hard drives hook up just like they did for the SATA drive, for the SSD. All right, guys. Now since we got the power supply installed, the hard drives installed, next thing would be the motherboard. When you install your motherboard, you want to make sure you have your I/O shield. It's the I/O shield. Your audio ports usually go towards the expansion slots for your graphics card and whatnot, for your add-in cards. Slide it back into the triangle. Get it started in there. It just friction fit. There's no screws to hold it in. And you should hear it clipping in. There we go. I think it's in all the way. Let's check it and make sure it's popped in there all the way around. Yep, it looks to be popped in there all the way. These little gold things down here, they're called standoffs. That's what holds your motherboard up away from your back plate. And them's pretty important. You want to make sure you got one underneath each hole in your motherboard, but you don't want one underneath your motherboard where there ain't a hole for it, because it can short out against your motherboard and destroy your motherboard, which wouldn't be good. I'm going to set it down in here the way it should be. Kind of line it up, and I'm going to check and make sure. I'm going to take a flashlight here, and I'm going to check and make sure there's a standoff underneath each one of these holes. If you're doing a new build in a case, most likely you're going to have to put in motherboard standoffs. You can see these standoffs along the edge where they was for the old motherboard. I'm not going to mess with them because they ain't touching the motherboard, so it ain't necessary to pull them out. Then if I pull them out, I'll probably lose them, and if you haven't changed your motherboard out and go to a full-size motherboard, you know, then you ain't gonna have no standoffs. So, well, I got it down in there and all my screw holes is lined up right. I'm gonna put one screw in it. I like this middle one, but it really don't matter. Just get it started down in there. You don't want to tighten it down yet. Like so. Then you want to flip it back up and look at your I/O shield. Make sure all your ports is coming through your I/O shield right. Make sure everything's lined up. Make sure them little grinding straps on your motherboard ain't going into the port no place, because that could actually stop you from using the ports. There we go. Looks like it's setting a little high, but that'll probably settle down. We'll check it again once we get the screws in. Once we get the screws in, it should go down into where it should be. We'll go ahead and get her screwed down and see what happens here. See my other videos, I pulled out a 6-inch magnetic tip extension for number 2. Okay, now, right now, we'll flip it back up here and check these ports, see if they line up right. They're lined up pretty good. I don't see where there should be any problem with using any of them. All right, all. Now since we got that motherboard installed, we're going to be doing the 8-pin connector for the CPU supplemental power. It's actually split into 4s, but they hook together and make one 8-pin. Some motherboards only take a 4-pin, some takes 8-pin, depending on the overclocking of it. Right up here is your 8-pin supplemental. There's a little notch on the side of it. There's a clip on the cable coming from power supply. Line them up, slip them down on, you'll hear a clip, and they're on there. The 24-pin, pretty well the same thing. It's a 20-pin plus 2. All right, here's your 24-pin adapter for your socket on the motherboard. You got a little clip on the outside. You got a clip on the side of the cable that comes from the power supply. Line them up, just like so, and slide them down on. Sometimes you have to support your motherboard to get that to clip down on there all the way. And it's just like so. All right, guys, now we're going to do these pesky front panel connectors right here. Here's the connectors coming off the front of the case. This is like your reset switch, your power LED. We have your reset switch right there. It will focus. Then you have your power LED, which is split into two different connectors right there. Then you got your HDD LED, which is your hard drive activity light. So I still think every case needs them. And then you have your power switch, which is one solid connector. Okay, you look down here on the motherboard. If you can read that, I don't know if you can read it or not. It's sketched on the board where each one hooks to. I don't know if you can see that. I can't hardly see it. It looks like the top two left pins is going to be your power LED. Right underneath of that is going to be your hard drive. Then your top, then the next two pins over is going to be your power switch and your reset switch. Pretty easy layout to follow. So, to be able to get you guys to be able to see this, we're going to start out with that reset switch. Now your switches can go on either way, guys. It don't matter about the switches because all you're doing is bridging the two together. Positive and negative does not matter. Just two little pins here and the one connector. With two little pins right there, and you got two little pins right here. It slides right down over top of it. Just like so. Right above that is the power switch. And it's the same thing, just two little wires there in one block. Got two little pins they slide over top of. Get them on the right pins and slide them down on. All right, then like I said, the one closest towards the RAM and the CPU, it says the power LED, which now on these, the positive and negative does matter. And on the board it tells you the positive goes to the left, goes towards the left, back towards your expansion slots. You want to make sure you get the positive and negative right on these or they won't work right. You can do these one at a time or do both of them at the same time, whichever way makes you feel comfortable with them. Just make sure you get them on the right pins. But that's the only one that's split. Now we got the HD LED, which it ain't split, but you still want to make sure that positive, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, you got a little positive above that one line, above the one wire. Then you got the negative above the other one. You want to make sure them's in the right position, because it is an LED light. Line them up on the pins and push them down on. Just like that. Okay. Then right beside that, this big connector right here, it says USB 3. We do have USB 3 on this case. And since we're right here, we're gonna go ahead and hook it up. You got a little notch on the, you got a little notch right here on the connector. You got a little notch inside the casing that the connector slides into. It's a 20-pin connector. You just line up them notches and slide it down in. It kind of clicks down in there, but there really ain't nothing to really hold it, but they click in fairly strong anymore. Okay, here's your two front USB 2 connectors. This case don't have USB 2 on the front of it. But I do have a USB connector on mine because of the card reader. So we're going to hook it up. You can tell it's a 20-pin connector, but the one's blocked off. Right there, the one pin's blocked off. There ain't no hole there. The connector's going to be the same way. On the one edge of it, there ain't going to be a pin. You need to make sure you line them up. And you're going to slide it down on, just like so. Now them don't click on either, but they fit on there fairly tight. Alright guys, now we're going to do the front audio. This case comes with an AC97 connector on it. Nobody ever uses them anymore. It's an old standard. You got HD audio. You look at it, it looks a lot like a USB 2 port does. It's a 20-pin connector, just like the USB port connector. It's got one pin blocked off. It's in a different position than the USB 2. That way you can't put it on the wrong header. All right, here's your front port audio header on the motherboard. It's got one pin missing where that blocked off hole is. Just line them up, just like so. You slide them down in there, and there they are. All right, guys, now we're going to do the SATA cables from the hard drives and the SSD. I'm just tracing them back here to figure out which one's which. This one here is from my SSD. Here's your SATA connectors on the board. They're labeled 0, 1, 2, and 3. I want my SSD, because it's my boot up drive, on 0. So it's going to go right there on the very first one. Just like the connector on the back of the hard drive or the SSD, you got the L bracket with the little metal clip to it. Line up your L bracket and you push it down on. Okay. Then we got the one coming up from the 1 terabyte. It's going to hook up right here. I'm going to put it in number 1, facing the same way with the L connector the right way. And we're going to click it on. Then we have the 3 terabyte one right here. We're going to do the same with it, but it's going to go on the number 2 port. So you got 0 port, 1 port, and 2 port. The 3 port's going to be left open because we don't have no other hard drives to hook up. Now for the fans, I got 2 front fans in this case, but the motherboard only has one case fan header. So I had to buy a splitter here, which is actually a 3-way splitter. I'm only using 2 of them. I got it hooked up. I'm going to run this cable back here beside the CPU fan. Here's your 4-pin header for your fan system fan. It's got a little piece of plastic sticking up on the back side. The connector's got these 2 little notches on it, and it's a 4-pin as well. Just line up the pins with the notches, just like so. You slide it down on there. All right, guys, only 1 port left. Next port to do it, which everybody's probably been anxious to see, is the graphics card. The graphics card you want to put in this top 16 by slot up here closest to the CPU. That's where you're going to get the best performance. You open up the clip. If you're working with a new case, guys, you got these slot covers back here that has to be taken out. This one here, I had the R9 380X in it, so the slots is already missing. Just got to take off the screws that holds in the graphics card here. And with this here clip opened up, you take your graphics card, line it up with the 2 slots that you removed, just like so. Get slotted down that slot, you push it down. Then you just put your 2 thumb screws back in here to hold the graphics card in the spot under the metal case. Alright guys, them 2 screws and back in there is nice and secure. Only thing left is to take your PCI Express cables, which runs from your power supply up to your graphics card. This has only got an 8-pin connector on it. This connector is 6 plus 2. You put the 2 together on the 6. And like the power connector on the motherboard, there's a little clip on the back side of the graphics card where they clip down in. Slide them together. And these here, they'll have to be slid together before they're put in, or they won't go in all the way. And you push them down on there till they click. And that's your power hooked up to your graphics card. Alright guys, now since that's all done up, all your main components is in there. About the only thing left to do is put your side panels back on. Alright all, I got a monitor hooked up to it here. I got a keyboard and mouse that was just laying around hooked up to it. That way we don't get no error codes about no keyboard and mouse being attached. Let's hit the power button. You can tell the lights on the card reader are already on. That means it's getting power to it. Hit the power button, it works. Light comes on the power. I can hear the fans in the inside turning. There's your LED light for the hard drive activity, because they're flashing a little bit. Means it's doing something, guys. Now since we added that RX 580 to it, it may take a little bit for it to come on, because it's detecting new hardware. There we go. And there you guys go. It's booting into Windows, because Windows was already installed on that SSD that we put in it. But yeah guys, that's the new build that I did in my Cooler Master Haf EVO case. Like I said, you know, I bought them parts to do the overclocking guides and whatnot. And it is an upgrade from the 8370 system that I was running with the R9 380X graphics card. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good performance up boost. I got some more upgrades I want to do to it. Since I'm on the AM4 platform, you know, I like to get probably a Ryzen 7 processor, and I want to do 16 gigs of RAM at least, maybe 32. We'll see what the budget allows for on that. But yeah, guys, that's the way I upgraded my system, and that's the way you build in this case. If you've seen my other video, if you haven't, go check it out. It actually got the case where I built the FX 8370 built into it. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hit that like button if you liked what you saw here today. Hit that thumbs down if you didn't. If you think I'm nuts or you don't like the quality of my videos or whatever, there's that comment section below. If you'd like to leave me a comment, if you have any suggestions for me or you think there's something I can do better, you let me know. If you have any ideas for any videos you'd like to see me do, leave it down there in the comments section. If I think it's worthy, I'll make a video on it. And if you really liked what you saw here today, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn that notification bell, that way you get notified next time I put out a video. And with all that being said, you all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.